All right, we got the inflation numbers way hotter than expected, or a little bit hotter than expected. We expected 3.7% for CPI. We got 3.8% for CPI, but that's not enough to change the market momentum on Bitcoin. If you look at the Bitcoin chart over here, what you can see is that that's not enough to make any significant move on the market momentum. The reason why that's not enough to make any significant move on the market momentum is something very simple. The market has been expecting high CPI numbers. And the reason why the market's been expecting high CPI numbers is because if you look at CPI, the majority of CPI is actually made up of energy, right? So if you look at that, and the price of energy has gone up since the war. What the market's telling you is that the market's forward-looking, and a forward-looking market kind of says, hold on, this war is nearly over, and that's why this market is not currently spooked by the CPI numbers. Net, even though we have high CPI numbers, the positive momentum for Bitcoin continues, and I'm really surprised and kind of impressed by the positive momentum that we've actually been getting around Bitcoin. If you look at the Bitcoin chart, and this is the Bitcoin chart right now, what you'll notice, and I commented a lot about this in Frontrunners over the weekend, I said, we got the first weekly close above the bear flag. It's the first weekly close above the bear flag. And, you know, I've given you guys my theories as to why we got a close above the bear flag. And that is that, you know, Michael Saylor single-handedly has brought this market out of a bear market into potentially a bull market. We see 𝗕𝗟𝗢𝗙 back in the chat. Jeez, the bull market must be back if 𝗕𝗟𝗢𝗙 back in the chat. So on the weekly, we finally got an amazing close above the bear flag over here. Not only that, that close was also the first weekly close above the bull market support bands. Now, generally in any bear market, Bitcoin does test the bull market support bands. Usually it does get rejected. We have obviously had times in bear markets where we haven't been rejected. Here, like here, you can see we went above the bull market support band. But what we see now is that Bitcoin on the weekly closed above the bull market support band. Let me just close this bottle over here. So we closed above the bull market support band. We closed above the bear flag, even though currently we're trading just under the bear flag. The next stop for all the bears is this level over here. So on the daily, the 200-day simple moving average, that is the next level. And right now, if we look at that level's at about 82,400. I think that when we break above that, then the bears that are left, and there's a lot of bears that are left. I mean, if you look at your Twitter, there are a lot of people that completely missed this pump. Yes, they called the Bitcoin down, but when Bitcoin went down to 60,000 or 65,000, they were still calling Bitcoin down, and that's great. But the problem is that they missed a return of, I mean, let's just quickly go back and look at the return that you missed just by being bearish. You've got to notice when the trend actually changes, and when the trend changes, you've got to change your view. Even though you think we might be coming down, you got to bounce here, and you would have missed 35% of the returns if you didn't believe in this pump. And there are a lot of people that I see on Twitter that are still adamant that this pump is fake. Now, they may be right, and if they are right, then this would be a perfect time for Bitcoin to reverse. So we broke out of the bear flag. That's a good step number one. Step number two is we have to break through the 200-day moving average. Once that happens, then the momentum that we are feeling is very much in place, and I wouldn't be betting against it. And again, one of the reasons why I wouldn't be betting against it is because when I look at the S&P 500, this S&P 500 has now broken a channel that's over 8 years old channel, and it's broken through it pretty convincingly on the daily and on the weekly. And so right now we're going through the stock market melt-up, this everything market melt-up. And in an everything market melt-up, I guess the one asset that you don't want to bet against is the most responsive asset. So it's almost like a tug of war that we have now between the 4-year cycle bear market and a complete melt-up in every other asset, and one of them's basically got to win. The good thing, though, is that if I look at this tweet over here, if I look at this data over here, it comes from 𝗕𝗟𝗙. He says, this is Bitcoin drawdowns from the all-time highs. And what you can see is that this drawdown from the all-time high seems to be different from the other drawdowns. It seems to have been, this is a fourth Bitcoin bear market, has materially decoupled from past cycles for now. This is likely a combination of a muted bull market on the front end, ETF inflows, and Michael Saylor buying with STRC. Speaking of Michael Saylor and STRC, I want to talk about two things regarding STRC, because STRC has really driven this bear market. But before I do, I'm going to have some water, and you're going to hit the like button. And that's a good trade-off. I see there's about 800 people in the chat, 93 people, 93 likes. Let's smash the like button. While I drink, you smash the like button. Next time put tequila in here, then we'll all be smashing likes, that's for sure. All right, so speaking of MicroStrategy, if you look at the momentum that Bitcoin's got, and one of the ways to look at the momentum is to actually look at the MSTR divided by IBIT ratio. That is a measure of leverage Bitcoin divided by spot Bitcoin in TradFi. And that shows you how much risk appetite the market has at the moment, right? And what you can see is that the market's risk appetite turned somewhere around here. And right now, that just broke through the 200-day simple moving average, which is a great sign for risk. We'll talk about Michael Saylor and about Stretch a little bit later, because right now Stretch is above 100 or is at 100, which means that Saylor has the license to continue buying. The only thing is he's not buying as much. In fact, let's talk about it now. So what we know is that Saylor has to wait for 100 before he issues more STRC stock at par. When he does sell those at par, he uses that money to actually buy Bitcoin. Now, remember that this stock pays a dividend. It pays 11.5% a year, which means that every month, basically, it pays you a dividend per share of 96 cents. So if you own a share, which costs $100, every month you get 96 cents. If you hold it until the 15th of May, you get a dividend. But if you're holding it after the 15th of May, then the person that held it until the 15th of May basically gets a dividend, right? And so what you can see is that this month, we only got to 100. The price tends towards 100, right? The price tends towards 100. The closer you are to receiving the dividend. In previous months, when you look at previous months, the price got to 100 3 weeks prior to the dividend date. In February as well, 3 weeks prior to the dividend date. This time, it only got to 1 on the 11th of May, which is 4 days before the dividend date. Which means that, in essence, the buying from Saylor is going to slow down, which is a little bit of a problem. I mean, it's not the end of it, but it just shows that the appetite for STRC, certainly this month, hasn't been as high as it's been in all the other months. In the other months, the STRC product has got to the 100 on the 25th of the previous month. This month on the 11th, which doesn't give Saylor a long time to buy. And that's why if you look at the buys that Saylor is actually publishing this week, they're very low buys. They're not the normal Saylor buys. But again, be that as it may, the positive momentum continues, right? One of the things that we can see is that we know that Bitcoin has been mysteriously following this ETF called the IGV ETF, which is a software ETF. And you can see that correlation continues, and that the IGV ETF is up since somewhere over here. And Bitcoin continues to follow it. If you believe that Bitcoin is tracking the IGV ETF, what you can see is that it has now broken out through a trend. So again, just a continuation of the momentum. Also, if you want to talk about continuation of momentum, you've got the ISM. Now, you'll remember that Bitcoin usually runs when the economy expands, right? The economy expands, or one of the indicators to show when the economy expands is the ISM manufacturing index, right? And what you can see here is that this is very much on an upward trend. It went from 48 and 49 to 52, and it looks like it's on a straight line up. And generally, as you can see in this chart over here, when the ISM goes up, so does Bitcoin go up. So when ISM crosses above 50, that's usually when Bitcoin continues to go up. The last indicator that I want to look at when it comes, one of the last indicators I want to look at when it comes to momentum is the copper. So copper had a massive breakout, right? You can see, that was a wick, but if you take out that wick, copper is starting to move up. It's moved up like 10% in a matter of a couple of days. Why does this excite me? Because if you look at the copper to gold ratio, you can see that that's turned. And when the copper to gold ratio turns, that's generally when Bitcoin actually starts running. So right now, I wouldn't fade the momentum. I know there are a lot of people on Twitter that are saying, there's going to be a correction, there's going to be a big correction. I wouldn't fade the momentum. Yes, got to be open to the fact that Bitcoin actually comes back and that we start emulating the previous 4-year cycles. But right now, the trend is your friend. And, the trend is your friend until the end of the trend. And right now, the trend is up and the momentum is up, right? One of the things that could really, really, really drive the momentum up is the fact that we may see the Clarity Act being passed, right? There's a 68% chance of the Clarity Act being passed. There is a new markup of the Clarity Act that has actually been published at the moment. It's a 309-page a 309 page, longer than the 278 page previous ones. I'll show you in a second why it is so much longer. The main points are still the same. The SEC overseeing many crypto token sales, and the CFTC seeing that trading happens on the aftermarket. The draft also adds investor protection languages, etc., etc. There's no yield on stablecoins. It stays exactly the same. And in the last minute, last minute, Elizabeth Warren and her friends want two things, right? The first thing is they won't support the bill without a conflict of interest provision. Okay, now what is a conflict of interest provision? Basically, they're saying the president can't launch tokens. They're very upset with Trump launching tokens, and they've got this conflict of interest provision. The other thing that they've managed to sneak into the bill here, which is like absolutely crazy, is they've managed to sneak in, just get this. Elizabeth Warren and the Senate released a bipartisan bill. The Build Now Act will incentivize communities to build more housing. They snuck this into the Clarity Act. Anyway, there's a good possibility that this passes in the next couple of days and then lands up on the president's desk. Why am I so excited about that? Why do I think that's good for momentum? Very simple, right? What you can see here, the regulatory unlocks for Bitcoin in the last 3 years have basically meant a big move in Bitcoin. First, we had the ETF approval that took it up. Then Trump was elected. Then the Genius Act was passed. And then we went slightly up, but then that was 10-10. And now the Clarity Act basically starts passing, right? So generally, these regulatory unlocks actually do add a lot of momentum to Bitcoin. And so sometime this week, we could actually get the Clarity Act passing. Right now, Polymarket says we are at 68% chance of this actually being signed into law in 2026. I think it will get passed. I actually got a message before the show, which I will call up for you here. It says that the chief policy officer at Coinbase actually finds this. He says, we're reviewing the details of the Clarity Act released overnight, but it's clear that this is a strong compromise, and as a result of the hard work for all parties involved, markups are really this exciting, but we can't wait for the bill to move forward this week. So it does look like the Clarity Act is going to get passed. And then let's look back at Joe Consorti's chart, which basically says, hold on a second, every time we get a regulatory unlock, things actually start to move. What else is there that's good? Well, altcoins. If you look at altcoins, and here I've taken the 1 week time frame of altcoins, what you can see is that the altcoins are actually starting to move. So no, we're not in a full-blown alt season. But if you look at, this is the last week, and you can see that a lot of altcoins are actually starting to move. Ton's up 30%, Sui's up 30%, Zcash up 30%, VVV is up, Venice token, this is Eric Voorhees' AI project. This one's up 78.83%, Near's up 20.8%. Let's go into the second 200. I really think you should buy 𝗕𝗏. I want to see what 𝗕𝗏 is doing. You know, generally you see these big, yes, at 128, just do me a favor, get yourself some 𝗕𝗏. You know this thing's going to explode at some point. So what we see, the altcoins are also starting to move. You can see it in two charts. The first thing is that you can see that let's just quickly go and get a Bitcoin dominance chart, which is looking like this. So that's the Bitcoin dominance chart. You can see that the Bitcoin dominance chart has actually started to turn. Okay, now it hasn't yet printed a lower low, but it has actually started to turn. You can also see that it has put in a death cross, right? So it's put in a death cross, which you can see over here. Now, generally, when you get these death crosses, generally Bitcoin dominance actually starts to go down. You can see it here and you can see it here. So that's another like positive momentum thing. It looks like there is more appetite in the in altcoins, which means that there's more confidence in the market. I posted quite a bit in Frontrunners about how I am positioning myself. I said, look, let's actually try and find that post. It was a post that I did like 2 days ago. And I kind of said, well, there was rumors of the Russia-Ukraine ending soon. I think the market could actually melt up. And I kind of said, like, you know, even though alts have been so badly hit, we've been in some really good alts, like Hyperliquid's nearly at all-time highs, Canton's nearly at all-time highs, Venice token's nearly at all-time highs, Zcash is nearly at all-time highs. I think that the next two to watch out for, and I said this in Frontrunners like 2 days ago, are Aerodrome and Near. Near because it just follows Zcash, and Aerodrome because when the Clarity Act passes, I think the market's going to start saying, hold on a second, if the Clarity Act passes, maybe Coinbase will feel comfortable to launch the base token, and the biggest proxy for the base token is actually Aerodrome. I also posted a gem, but if you want that gem, I think you need to join Frontrunners. If you want to join Frontrunners, if you were a member, you can join for free. Like literally, you can just go back here. If you want to join, there is a link here. You can join for free. Let's have a look here. Yeah, 24/7 research. Just join for free. Oh, okay, wait, guys, let's just pause the show for a second. We will continue with the show. So my kids built an app. They 𝗙𝗏𝗏𝗏. They're here today. Get this. We're in Cape Town, right? It's hardly raining. And the kids, the schools have closed down because of heavy rains. Okay, now, I don't remember when I was at school. Hardest, when you were at school, did they ever close down the school because of heavy rains? Never. We used to go to school with an umbrella and a raincoat. No, my kids, different. They're here because, and there hasn't been a raindrop all day outside, but they closed the schools to preempt us. So now I've got my kids here and they're vibe coding shit because I told them that's all they can do. So they've built these two apps. I haven't actually seen the apps. It's called Splat Arena and Robot Animal Arena. If you guys could maybe just go and play with my kids, because that would save me a lot of work. And maybe the games are cool. I actually haven't seen. Let's actually see, are the games cool? Let's have a look here. They built them on Lovable. It's so cool. You know, my son said to me earlier, he said to me, he was coding, and I said to him, like, show me what you've coded. And he said, Abba, he calls me Abba, which is like how you say dad in Hebrew. He said, Abba, in the old days, did you have to code this? I'm like, the old days were like 2 weeks ago, bro. Like 2 weeks ago. Anyway, let's get back to the action. So you've got the Clarity Act passing this week, and then you've got another big piece of news which may be very good for markets, and that is that Trump is actually going to China, right? There were a lot of discussions as to whether Trump would go to China or wouldn't go to China. He is going to China. He'll land there tomorrow, right? May 13th, Trump lands up in China. Why do I think this is good for markets? Because you know Trump's going to go there, and then he hasn't gone by himself. He's taken a lot of like business leaders with him, right? So that's the list of people we know, and I'll show you one or two others. So Tim Cook's going with him. Elon's going with him. A lot of other people are going. One thing that's missing for me here is Brian Armstrong. Why isn't Brian Armstrong going with him? I guess because China is very much anti-crypto. And the other one that's actually going with him, which I want to show you, which is very interesting. I want to show you this. Hold on, I have to find this. So Marco Rubio is going to China. But remember, Marco Rubio is actually sanctioned in China. Okay, so this is going to be very interesting. You got Marco Rubio actually going to China with the president. Listen to this.
We can expect to see Secretary includes several cabinet secretaries. A source tells me we can expect to see Secretary of State Marco Rubio traveling with the president, the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, the Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, and Trade Rep Jamieson Greer. Rubio, of course, being the biggest surprise for everyone because he was sanctioned by China and banned back in 2020 for bringing up the Uyghur persecution. The president says the Iran conflict has changed the agenda by a lot ahead of the summit. Xi might actually try to mediate today, later this week because China is hugely invested in regional stability and the flow of oil through the Strait of Hormuz. The president says a ceasefire with Iran is on life support currently after Tehran backed away from giving up its nuclear dust.
So what are we expecting to see here?
Unbelievably weak. I would call it the weakest right now. After reading that piece of garbage they sent us, I didn't even finish reading it. I would say the ceasefire is.
So, what are we expecting? We're probably expecting some good news regarding business and ideas and stuff like that. Polymarket actually summarized it pretty well. They've said, look, you know, they will talk about a tariff reduction. There's a 51% chance. Taiwan arms sales halt. AI export restrictions relief, you know, that they can get chips and they can export, etc., etc. Also, talking about the war in Iran, I think the war in Iran, as they said in that clip, China is very invested because it gets a lot of its oil through the Strait of Hormuz. And I think it's really taking strain at the moment. And so I think that Xi will actually get involved in actually ending the war. I read this tweet over here. And I don't have the tweet here anymore. I closed it. But there was a tweet that said that Iran is reaching out to China in a last-ditch attempt to basically... is Jensen not on the list? That's pretty interesting. That is really interesting. Hold on. Let's just quickly look here. I didn't actually notice that. Someone said, you're right. Jensen's not on the list. How can they not have Jensen 𝗙𝗏𝗏𝗙𝗏? He's not on the list. Wonder if he still owns Arweave. Actually, I do own Arweave. I look at this. Actually, for those of you who doubt my conviction, here it is. I showed the people in Frontrunners what I'm holding: Bitcoin, ETH, Sol, Zcash, Sui, Hype, Arweave. I expect Sol to rip soon. I also expect Arweave to rip soon. I think also 𝗕𝗏𝗏𝗏 is a good one. All of this is in Frontrunners, guys. If you want to join Frontrunners, I mean, you can see I was quite active here. If you want to join, it's free if you were a member already. And for new members, it's 50% off for the first month. So, I mean, I think you should join. You don't like it, cancel after the first month. I think you'll make a lot more money. Dude, 𝗷𝗡 is dead. Stop bringing it up. I don't think it is. I spoke to the team not so long ago, and I think there's a lot happening there. What else is there? What else is going on here? So we've spoken about Sailor. We've spoken about my kids' app. That's the most important thing. There's the Blow-Fin trading competition. There's 5 days to go. So if you enter now, you take a trade, you win. It could be very simple. Let's just see what the winners look like. Let's just see. In the team competition, you don't need a lot to win here, hey? And you can win $100,000. You don't need a lot to win. I don't know how to get the rankings, but you don't actually need a lot to win here. Otherwise, I mean, we can take one last look at the bubbles and just see is there any movement? This is the 1 week bubbles. And the 1 day, not expecting anything on the 1 day. 𝗏𝗏 has actually been moving up quite nicely if you look at it over here. So it's, I mean, moved up. Let's look at the 1 week. There's something going on with the 𝗏𝗏. I think it's around. It's very good actually. Look at that, from 50 to 90 in the last week. Great momentum. Great. Injective also has amazing momentum. Look at that. Look at the 1 month on Injective, from 280 to 490, almost a 2x over there. I made a very cool video about bull markets and how crypto investors missed every other bull market out there. I'm going to drop that video tomorrow on the other channel. Otherwise, someone says, bro is into fundamentals when the price will never recover off some of those calls. Okay, I mean, let's wait and see. Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm right. I could do with some damn attrition war being over. Okay. Purple Bitcoin on Solana. Is that a meme coin? My goodness. Wonder if he still owns 𝗷𝗡. Need Jensen there. Okay, I see the same guys. All right, chaps. I will see you guys again tomorrow. Until then, trade well, my friends.